Unless you completely live under a rock, you definitely heard by now that UnitedHealthcare CEO Brian Thompson was shot to death in New York City the other day. The suspect has yet to be caught, but put a little asterisk after yet to be caught because that information could easily change between the time I'm recording this video and when I actually upload this video, because I usually upload these videos a day after I record them. But anyway, considering this dude was the CEO of a health insurance company, I find it really, really difficult for me to feel any fucking sympathy for him. This doesn't mean I was jumping for joy and doing cartwheels around my house when I first heard this news. Well, one, if you took a look at my build, you know I'm not doing any fucking cartwheels. Two, I just felt apathy more than anything. Private health insurance companies are among some of the most hated companies in this country for good reason. They're the middleman between you and your doctor. These health insurance companies siphon thousands of dollars out of you every year, and then when you finally need them, they could turn around and say, nah, we don't feel like granting you coverage for this treatment you may need. You don't have to search far and wide to find horror stories told by people claiming that they or a loved one initially had an illness that was totally treatable, but their health insurance company didn't want to grant them coverage for said treatment, and they couldn't get the treatment because they themselves couldn't afford the treatment, and now either that loved one is dead or on their deathbed, or the person telling the story is on their deathbed. These health insurance companies exist solely to exploit the suffering of citizens. They make more of a profit siphoning money out of you every month and then denying you coverage when you may need treatment for any ailment you may have than actually granting you the fucking coverage. You want to hear something really egregious about UnitedHealthcare specifically? Here's a snippet from a Newsweek article. One criticism of UnitedHealthcare that has generated attention following the shooting involves a lawsuit alleging the company uses artificial intelligence to deny coverage to some elderly patients who are on a Medicare Advantage plan, despite allegedly being aware that the algorithm has a 90% error rate. If your grandma, grandpa, or elderly mom or dad need treatment that could potentially save their lives, well, UnitedHealthcare is overwhelmingly likely to deny them coverage for said treatment. UnitedHealthcare has one of the highest denial rates out of every private health insurance company in this country. Think of all of the people who have died throughout the years or whose lives were made significantly worse because UnitedHealthcare didn't want to provide them coverage for treatment they needed. And yet I'm supposed to fucking feel bad because the guy who made tens of millions of dollars every year off of his company that just let working class people die or let elderly people die because they probably had the rationale of, well, they probably weren't going to live that much longer anyway, got murked. There was one tweet I saw a screenshot of from dipshit neolib journalist Aaron Rupar responding to another guy who was making fun of Brian Thompson's death, and Aaron Rupar wrote, absolutely depraved to get your dunks in when the guy was just murdered in cold blood. I'm sorry, I don't feel bad when someone who has profited off of death and misery, especially to such a degree like Brian Thompson did, dies. What was his big contribution to the world besides being a blood-sucking leech on the back of working class people in desperate positions? I've seen some of this from legacy media pundits and some politicians eulogizing this guy. Brian Thompson was a good-hearted family man. You know, kinda nudging people who feel apathetic about his death or outright celebrating his death to feel some ounce of sympathy for him because think of the family he left behind. Okay, yeah, I hear he had two sons. I don't know how old they are, but regardless, it sucks that they lost their father, especially so close before Christmas. And that's where my sympathy begins and ends. But even then, I'm reminded of the countless families in this country who have been torn apart because of this guy's company. Either because they lost a family member they were close to because they were denied coverage for treatment that could have potentially saved their life, or they've been crushed by medical debt, which is the #1 cause of bankruptcy in this country, because their insurance company refused to provide assistance. So maybe this guy was a wonderful father and family man, but he had no problem destroying who knows how many other fucking families in this country and profiting off of the suffering. I came across someone sharing a thread from r/conservative on Reddit, and it was about this guy's death, and the top replies may surprise you. Here's one. Complicit for over 7 million deaths, 1/3 claim denial rate, UHC being investigated for using algorithms that automatically deny claims. UHC has some of the highest healthcare premiums and costs. All the while he was the CEO CEO and making over $10 million a year. Also, he was being investigated for fraud, money laundering, and insider trading. This man did not have clean hands. I am not justifying murder, just stating the facts. Over 1K upvotes. Here's another one with over 2,000 upvotes. People are naturally going to celebrate. This man's death is an allegory for the failure of privatized healthcare as a whole. We can all relate. Prescriptions we can't afford, people we know who have been turned down healthcare or treatment due to insurance reasons. I'm a Republican, and I'm not going to defend the failure of privatized healthcare. It's an absolute tragedy, the people who don't have access to healthcare. It's not just fringe leftists dancing on the grave of this man. This is one of the very few things that has unified people all across the political spectrum. Because everyone has a horror story or knows someone who has a horror story regarding private health insurance. And this is part of what lost the Democrats the 2024 election. The insistence that we need to trust in institutions. Everything is peachy keen right now in this country. When no, everything is not peachy keen. We have millions of people in this country barely able to scrape by. They can't afford treatment they may need. They can't afford hospital visits. There are instances of people going through a medical emergency not wanting those around them to call the ambulance because they wouldn't be able to afford the trip to the hospital. And so they would rather just risk fucking dying rather than be crushed by medical debt. And yet assholes like this dude make millions and millions of dollars every year fucking over the working class when they're in a desperate situation. The guy who shot him likely only has a body count of 1. This guy had a body count in the millions. You don't have to be a staunch communist to see the glaring issue here. Millions of people in this country, regardless of political affiliation, see the issue. But unfortunately, fuckheads like Donald Trump take advantage of the justified anger people feel towards the way this country is run, but direct their anger towards immigrants, trans people, and distract them with stupid culture war bullshit instead of telling them their life sucks because of the billionaires who exploit them every single fucking day. Kinda like several of Trump's cabinet positions. He has like, what, 5 or 6 billionaires that are going to be in his upcoming administration, and oh yeah, Trump himself, corrupt business tycoon from New York City. But Trump ran a populist campaign because he knows that's what the people crave. But we didn't see sweeping change in his first term, and we're almost certainly not going to see sweeping change in his second term, and yet people still fell for the trick. Trump isn't going to save you. Another milquetoast neolib centrist the Democrat Party is almost surely going to prop up in 4 years from now isn't going to save you. We as a country need to finally come together and reject private health insurance companies and other industries and billionaires who exist solely to profit off of your suffering. And this country needs to finally catch up with the rest of the quote-unquote civilized world and have a universal healthcare system. Oh, but my tax dollars, your tax dollars goes to bombs and munitions sent to Israel so they could kill more brown people in the Middle East. What benefits your life more? A genocide going on in a part of the world you have likely never fucking been to and never will be in? Or you and your neighbors finally being guaranteed healthcare? I think the answer is obvious, hopefully. Anyway, that's all I have to say. Bye-bye.